13 years ago, Nintendo released a game that is to this date one of the most sought after and beloved games, and is considered by many to be one of the best video games of all time. This game is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Not only is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D a remastered version with much better graphics and even more content than the original game for the Nintendo 64, as well as its GameCube and Wii re-releases, it is the first handheld version of this game, allowing you to experience Ocarina of Time wherever and whenever you want. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D starts out as we are introduced to the main character Link through the words of the Great Deku Tree. Link is a Hylian boy living in Kokiri Village and is the only one amongst the Kokiri who does not have a fairy. A fairy by the name of Navi is sent to retrieve Link and to be his guardian fairy. The Great Deku Tree tells Link that he must save Hyrule and that he must first go meet Princess Zelda. Link sets off to visit the princess, from whom he is told he is the hero in her dreams who will defeat the evil man named Ganondorf, who seeks to rule Hyrule, and is introduced at that moment as well. Link will travel through time and through several dungeons in pursuit of defeating Ganondorf and saving Hyrule. Although the story is deep and vibrant, and will keep you playing through the game, the main idea consists of very unoriginal concepts. It is not the first story to feature a hero defeating the main villain and saving the princess, nor is it the first story to feature time travel. The same basic plot is also the same as multiple Zelda games which have been released before, as well as after Ocarina of Time. But this game does a completely amazing job with combining several story concepts we have already seen into a unique and enjoyable experience. However, if you have already played the original Zelda, A Link to the Past, Twilight Princess, or Wind Waker, you will be able to easily predict some of the major plot points of the game. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D features an expansive and explorable world with many things to do and many upgrades to obtain. Although none of the upgrades are hard to get, and most can be obtained during the main story, the game is long enough that it provides a good deal of content. Throughout Hyrule, there are a total of 8 dungeons, each giving you a new item and involve harder puzzles. At the end of each dungeon is a boss which requires the new item obtained in the dungeon to be able to defeat it. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D features a mirrored version of the Master Quest, which was originally a pre-order gift for the Wind Waker. After beating the main game, you get access to this harder quest. The Master Quest features harder puzzles, harder enemies, and is overall a harder game than the main one. Because it is mirrored, everything that was on the left is now on the right, and everything that was on the right is now on the left. This remake also features Sheikah Stones, which provide help for young and new players. The only new content other than the mirrored Master Quest that appeals to both new and old fans of Ocarina of Time is the Boss Rush mode. As you beat more bosses in the main game, they are unlocked in the Boss Rush mode. This lets you either fight a boss of your choosing, and you are timed so you can see how good of a time you can get on the boss. You can also fight each boss back to back and try to get a record time as well. As a remake, however, Ocarina of Time 3D is missing something that will truly make the game worth playing again for people who have already played the original game multiple times. The Legend of Zelda has always featured great music. Ocarina of Time is no different. The game features a wonderful soundtrack which you will more than likely be humming as you do other activities. The music in Ocarina of Time 3D is literally unchanged. It is the same exact music as the original, keeping its nostalgic feeling intact. Although the music is still nostalgic, it would have been nice to be able to hear the entire soundtrack be orchestrated or remixed so that even that aspect of the game would be new. Before playing Ocarina of Time 3D, I expected the game to suffer from the same problem that almost every 3DS game before it faced, which is low volume. However, Ocarina of Time 3D does not suffer from this problem nearly as much as the other games, and the volume is much louder than them. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time was the first game in the series to feature a 3D world rather than a top-down or side view. Because of it being a 3D world, you have the ability to lock onto enemies using the L button. In Ocarina of Time 3D, the B button is used for the sword, and the R button is used for the shield. The Ocarina gets its own item slot, and there are 4 slots that you can assign items to. This makes a total of 5 item slots, as opposed to the 3 that were in the original game. The only 2 of these item slots that have their own button are the X and Y slots. The others are all touch activated. The upgraded graphics in Ocarina of Time 3D are absolutely gorgeous, and areas are much more detailed and beautiful than they were in the original. Enemies are more detailed and textures are much better for the most part. However, some vine walls and staircases were not redone and still just look like a layer of paint on the wall, rather than things that stick out. To be more accurate to the original artwork, bright and cheerful characters are even more bright and cheerful, while creepy monsters and characters like the Redeads are just as creepy. The 3D effect is probably the best the 3DS has to offer at this point. Ocarina of Time is and always has been a great game. The original had a great amount of replay value and is still much better than most games we see today. Because of the boss rush mode, the master quest, and a bunch of Easter eggs throughout the game, Ocarina of Time 3D has even more replay value than the original. As a remake, Ocarina of Time 3D does its job and is much better in just about every aspect than the original game. Whether you have played Ocarina of Time countless times, or someone who has not even played a Zelda game, I would highly recommend this game. It is a great game, and the first must-have game for the Nintendo 3DS. Because it is a remake, just a single score does not do the game justice, so this game gets 3 scores. The original game gets a 9.5 out of 10 because although the game is great in just about every aspect, the story lacks in originality. However, the game combines several themes we have already seen into something great. As a remake, it gets 8.8 out of 10. Although the remake is better in every way, it definitely could have benefited from having more content that appeals to people who have already played the game, as well as remastered music. Overall, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D for the Nintendo 3DS gets a 9.2 out of 10. For a full written review and more gaming news, please visit KimikoGaming.com.